Hey, Startup Nation. Imagine a job where you can work wherever you want, on whatever you want, from wherever you want. Hello to white sand beaches of Thailand or the comfort of your own couch. Oh, and most importantly, you're your own boss. Now, what if I told you that the dream job could become your reality? This is the life of a freelancer, and with some hard work and with the help of Hectic, it can be your life too. Hectic is an all-in-one business management software built specifically for freelancers who are just getting started or looking to take their freelance business to the next level. Hectic is everything a freelancer needs to get started, from an easy-to-use contracts and proposal builder to client management and project tracking to expenses and invoicing that features click-to-play technology that makes it quick and easy for freelancers to get paid. And we all want to get paid, Startup Nation. Built specifically for freelancers, Hectic is everything you need to get started. Visit gethecticapp.com/the startup life now to learn more and start for free. Yep. Adding your first client on the platform will always be free. And if you sign up through gethecticapp.com/the startup life, you'll be supporting me and this podcast, because who couldn't use a little support these days, Startup Nation? Visit gethecticapp.com/the startup life to find everything you need to start or grow your freelancing business today, and put those in-demand skills to good use in the way you've always dreamed of. The link is there in the show notes.
It's time to be about that life, the startup life. Here's your host, Dominic Lawson.
All right, Startup Nation. So I hope you're ready to receive some value today. My name is Dominic Lawson, and this is the Startup Life, the show for entrepreneurs and career-minded professionals. You know, Startup Nation, every industry is ripe for disruption. Doesn't matter if it's shipping, doesn't matter if it's e-commerce. Every industry is ripe for disruption. And today's guest knows something about that disruption in the telecom space. He is the Chief Strategy Officer of Wingtail Inc. We have my guy, Greg Dybec, here in the building. Greg, man, what's going on, big dog?
Not much, man. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Absolutely. Absolutely. Once again, just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. And Startup Nation, this episode of the Startup Life is brought to you by Wing. Go ahead and make sure you check out the website, www.wingalpha.com. We have a link there in the show notes for easy access if you're listening to the replay on the podcast, man. So before we kind of dive into your story, man, and all about Wing, man, you know, 2020 was definitely one for the record books, man. It's something I definitely think nobody's going to forget anytime soon. But I'm curious, man, like, what did some lessons, some things, some takeaways from 2020 that kind of resonates with you, my man, G?
Yeah, totally. Great question. I think, there's kind of two, I think, on a personal level and
Sure.
on a business level for me. I think, on the personal, funny enough, my wedding was in January, so
wow.
I just beat the pandemic. So
Right.
It's been kind of an interesting, first year of marriage, I would say, of, spending a lot of time together with the wife kind of right away. Not exactly the first year we expected. Didn't get to go on a honeymoon, but,
Right.
I think really positive in a lot of ways, to kind of be thrown into that situation and,
For sure.
explore marriage and everything together in that sense. And then, from, a business standpoint, it's been interesting. I think from, we'll obviously dive into Wing, but I think being a utility business and offering cell coverage,
Right.
Luckily, we were able to kind of survive and I would say even thrive in some of these tougher moments because of the utility that we're offering. And, essentially a cell phone plan would probably be one of the last things that people would kind of give up.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, I would say people are looking to see where they can save. So I think, we're kind of in a good position there to kind of make our offering and show why we're an alternative to kind of the big carriers and save people money. So it was, a good opportunity, for the business to survive, but I think also offer something, just beyond a service. I think it was cool to see how much, we could also help people actually save money when kind of counting money and needing to save,
Right.
And, not have too many expenses or see where people could cut. It was really good to be, part of people's lives in that sense, I would say. And that's not something I necessarily thought the business would, be positioned to do. Like, yes, we do save people money regardless, but, when it really counted, I think that was a positive that came out of it.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that. I was going to ask that later, but I'm glad you said that. So let's dive into that now, because one of the things in learning about the wing story, and it goes back to what you were just saying, as far as like, saving people money, even during, I guess, quote unquote, normal times, that's always a plus. But, with a lot of people having hours being cut and maybe losing their job, unfortunately, we lost a lot of entrepreneurs in 2020. So trying to save every dollar really counted. But also in the flip side, in this world of like, we're becoming, as we kind of navigate this pandemic, we're becoming kind of contactless and not really being able to be face to face, being able to still communicate. Right. It's still super important. So it seemed like Wing kind of positioned itself twofold, if you will. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, totally. And that was the plan all along.
Yeah.
Is, pre-pandemic too. It's just the idea of, let's make something that's truly just digital facing in this industry, because, even before the pandemic, most people didn't have a lot of fun going into cell phone stores.
God,
you're essentially
right.
wasting your Saturday, or there's a lot of horror stories. So I think we were positioned, for this as well, just by offering that sort of digital alternative, basically signing people up through text message.
Right.
About 99% of our users actually do sign up and get activated onto our service through text message. So we kind of created these, new channels of communication, of support, of sign up, that luckily, we're able to help a lot of people switch to us easily, during the pandemic as well, and start saving kind of right away.
For sure. You know what? Talk about that a little bit, because, I saw in the notes there that, you was able to kind of switch, 100K users over from, a lot of them coming from the big two, Verizon and AT&T, through like your text messaging strategy. Kind of talk about, the origins of that strategy through text messaging, and also, man, like, why did it work? Why ultimately did it work? Do you think was it just to saving money? Was it just offering something different? Talk about that a little bit, because what I will say, and I have to add on to what you were saying, or kind of reverberate what you were saying. I definitely know that whole ordeal about like being in a cell phone store for like hours and hours on end, which is just like you just lose a whole Saturday or something. Well, go ahead, man. Kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, totally. I think, the answer to that question kind of starts with the overall, origin story of this is, myself and the two founders, we had worked together in the past, and this was a new venture for us in 2017, but, none of us had any telecom experience. I barely knew my way around a phone other than, texting, calling, downloading apps, kind of the basics, nothing about SIM cards or service or anything. So I think going in, being somewhat naive and ignorant is kind of what helped us, because we were able to really map out from the start, like, okay, like what would the perfect cell phone carrier look like? Like, what are all the pain points? What are all the stressors? None of us, there's no real brand affinity with the phone carriers that we use. It's kind of just, my parents were on Verizon, so now I'm on Verizon.
Right.
I switched to T-Mobile 10 years ago, and now I'm with them. There's no real like brand affinity or anything keeping us with them. We just, you get good coverage, and that's that. So
For sure.
I think we were just kind of able to start from a place of mapping out, like, what does this look like? How would we want to communicate with the cell phone company, and kind of what would the main features be that, we would enjoy? And that communication aspect was big for us from the start, because we kind of looked at one of the biggest pain points being, either going into a store or calling a customer support line. Either one, like, kiss your day goodbye, right? Like, and then the person, when you do speak to them, you hope that they're helpful. You hope that they're not just upselling you the whole time. So the idea was, how do we communicate kind of every day, and how do we kind of give control back to the user? So for me personally, I don't make too many phone calls outside of like work calls. I'm texting all day long, or DMing, and the conversation gets to kind of last on your time. That's, the beauty of text message. So we kind of just said to ourselves, like, what if we incorporated this into our kind of service model? Like, what if people could just text us with their questions, and we'll create the system on the back end where, like, you could step away if you need to step away for a few minutes, if you need to eat dinner, if you want to pick this conversation up later, like, we're here. We'll be on your phone, ready to text you back when it's convenient for you. And we felt like that was really lacking, especially in this industry. So we just want to create that model where, people can kind of be in control and talk to us the way that they're talking to their friends and family. So I think that was, one of the big reasons for success is just how familiar that form of communication was for people kind of throughout their day.
Right. And you're definitely making an impact, man. Like the 100K users, that's nothing to scoff at, man, for sure. And I just find it fascinating. And Startup Nation, I really hope you're catching this. It's like they just like went in with no telecom experience, right? And you say, you know what? We're just going to go after the big four or the big three or whatever, right? We're just going to go after them. Why not? And so kind of talk about, I guess some of the barriers of, kind of taking on such a long time industry and long time competitors in those big four or big three, cause I know kind of T-Mobile and Sprint kind of merged there and stuff like that. But kind of talk about that, I guess the audacity of Wing to just say, you know what, we're just going to do it. Yeah,
look, it's super ambitious and it's crazy, and a lot of
Absolutely.
people called us crazy, rightfully so. And
right.
Luckily, like a lot of entrepreneurs out there, I think that's what fuels us more than anything.
For sure.
And we just kind of crave the challenges, and we crave situations where we can be underdogs, because everyone loves an underdog story, and there's just such a motivating quality to that. And for us to enter this industry is not easy. So we were lucky enough to kind of get the initial deals needed where, just the quick background on how it operates is we have deals in place to basically use the same cell towers as the main carrier. So we offer Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Sprint. So our users are on those different networks based on the carrier that they're switching from, what their phone is compatible with. So we offer all the same service. We offer 5G, it's nationwide. Right. Getting those deals is the hard part, and that doesn't happen very often. So we knew if we can enter the space and get those deals to essentially get that service that we own completely, like Verizon, and that they have no say in the business. They're just kind of powering us. I always say, like the same way Uber doesn't own any cars,
exactly,
or Airbnb doesn't own any apartments, we're borrowing the cell towers, and then it's our business to sell.
For sure.
But basically, getting in meant that there would be somewhat limited competition of like copycats popping up, which is nice. But like you said, now we're kind of in this industry with the giants.
Right,
and
exactly.
I think we always said like we didn't want to go niche with this. We really wanted to offer kind of a premium service and just a true alternative, because we just found this to be kind of an old guard industry that hadn't been disrupted, that didn't have anything really digital facing. And we saw the trends with hotels to Airbnb, or going to a mattress store to just ordering Casper or Purple. And it's like, why not your phone service? Like, why can't that brand affinity exist? And people, if we can educate them on how much easier it is now to actually switch your services and, keep your phone number, keep your phone and all that, if we can educate it and market it, we really do think that people will switch and try this alternative. And luckily, that has been the case. And I think just for us, it's been motivating every day in this journey to just wake up and kind of go after this ambitious goal. And like I always like using Michael Jordan as an example,
For sure.
When he played, he would always it's kind of the concept that an enemy is a good thing, right? And I don't mean enemy as like something bad or evil, but enemy as an obstacle. So Jordan, when he played, he would find the things to take personal, or people that he considered kind of worthy of gaining his full attention and focus. And I think for us, it's like entering this industry of Goliaths. It kind of fueled that competition in us, and just taking, any market share from these guys, these giants, while having zero experience in telecom. I mean, that's what gets me super excited personally. And I think it's just, great to kind of test yourself against giant obstacles like that. So it's definitely been kind of fueling us to keep growing and growing.
No, I definitely understand that. And I definitely get the Jordan reference. Sometimes Jordan would create monsters that didn't exist, for sure. So no, I definitely understand that. And I'm glad you brought up the 5G, Greg, because I think, this goes to a larger thing that a lot of times when you're a new startup and you're kind of competing with the big boys, whether it be cell phone service, whether it be banking or something like that, a lot of times those customers have the questions of, I like the convenience of this that a smaller company can't provide. But you guys have 5G. You guys have the top line phones that, which really does drive cell phone subscriptions and stuff like that. You have the best phones and stuff like that. Kind of talk about, I mean, obviously you don't want to be exactly like the big boys, right? But that offering that convenience and offering some of the same things at a lower rate, man, like kind of talk about why that's important to the subscriber, why that's important to people, because, a lot of times as newly minted entrepreneurs, we don't get into the customer's, psyche, into their shoes enough often, but kind of talk about being in the customer's mindset, being in their shoes to really drive home and really deliver great service for those subscribers.
Yeah,
users,
totally.
rather. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and it's a great point, because while we want to be different in so many ways, I think, you're talking about connectivity. You're
Absolutely.
talking about your cell phone. You're talking about, this is essentially another limb at this point. Like to leave your cell phone behind, you truly feel like you're missing a part of you. And it's very important. It was important for us from the start, as we were kind of getting these deals in place to offer this service, that we can remain a premium service, that we can offer the features that
Right.
are necessary to most users out there. So making sure that we would have 5G access as soon as it was available, that the network isn't slowed down or anything like that, that we
Right.
can offer things like, unlimited plans, that we can offer things like hotspot on plans, international data. Like those premium features were super important to us, because we know that is just kind of the basis of what people need. So I think having that really helped us spread our message and basically educate any prospective customers out there and say, like, I know it might sound too good to be true, but it's not. This is how this works. We are offering the same service in a prettier package, an easier to use package with an app, with giving you control. There's no contracts. You can change your plan month to month, literally by just pressing a button. If you realize you don't want unlimited this month because it's a pandemic and you're home connected to Wi-Fi all the time, then
Right.
go down to our 1 gigabyte plan and save money. And it's giving that kind of control back to the user while still having that premium baseline, which was important, because it's really it's a comfort level. Like I think we were always honest with ourselves that we're asking a very big task of people, because switching your phone isn't something that's easy. It is easy, but in a person's mind, it's not, because you start thinking about all the things that could go wrong. I need
sure.
my text messages. I need my photos. I don't want to lose my phone number. Luckily, the truth is, through a lot of government regulations and things that have changed over time, the switch is simple, and you do keep all those things. You don't lose the phone. There's no real downtime. You have your phone number forever. So it's, our marketing is also an education, really. But back to your point, just having that baseline of kind of the main features, I think was crucial for us as just the foundation to then build kind of like the perks and everything on top of it.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that in Startup Nation. And once again, Startup Nation, we're talking to Greg Dybec, Chief Strategy Officer at Wing. And if you want to check out Wing, once again, go to wingalpha.com. That's WINGALPHA.com. We have a link there in the show notes for easy access if you listen to the replay on the podcast. Look here, Startup Nation, like, it's extremely affordable. And some of the things that Greg just talked about, it includes 5G service, unlimited voice and SMS, HD voice and Wi-Fi calling, visual voicemail. The list goes on and on. So if you're ready to make that switch, go to wingalpha.com. Now, I want to ask you this, Greg, because look, man, like we said, we talk about disruption and stuff like that. And even as, you kind of grow and blossom in the cell phone industry, it seems like there are some, not necessarily barriers, but there are some competitors to the cell phone industry a little bit as well. And I mean that in the sense of, you talked about a lot of people don't really use the phone a lot. They use text messages, DMs and stuff like that. So when I look at like a WhatsApp and a Facebook Messenger and stuff like that, and they starting to, have like the ability to make phone calls through that, stuff like that. And if you only have Wi-Fi, not a cell phone service, do you guys at Wing kind of look at that as like a possible threat to the business and stuff like that? Do you have those discussions about threats to the business? Kind of talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I think the short answer is no.
Gotcha.
We wouldn't necessarily consider those services a threat. I
Okay.
think that there are still too many features that are necessary for majority of people in the United States that doesn't kind of cover the needs. And I think, that's the beauty of this too, is, there's 320 million roughly, people in America. How many of those have cell phones? And the beauty is every one of those people with cell phones is a potential customer. And while I think there is a shift to cord cutting and things like that, like me personally, I haven't had cable for years, so I'm definitely one of those people. But
and that's I think, and that's what I was kind of getting at, like that whole kind of niche in people, because we like just like you, we've cut the cord like a couple of years ago as well. But I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's kind of where I was getting at. But go ahead.
Yeah. I think the good thing is, like, there's going to be what would probably be fringe users now who kind of go all the way and maybe can, because of their style or daily routine, live off, Wi-Fi enabled features, like purely, which good for them. I mean, that's awesome if you can swing it. I think most people just rely on cell data, way too much. And especially when you look at the country as a whole, I mean, there's so many issues with high-speed internet, broadband. Like when you look at the middle of the country, especially, there's a lot of people who, Wi-Fi is a true luxury, and cell data is kind of their lifeline for a lot of things. And they would never, even be able to consider going without a phone at this point. But, I think we do position ourselves like as kind of that middle ground, because I think we can attract, both sides. I think we can attract just the person who just would never even consider changing, from a cell phone or going to a WhatsApp or something like that, and just wants an alternative and wants something cheaper. But at the same time, for the people who do feel like they might want to kind of cut away from the mainstream a bit, I think we position ourselves well there too, because we're saying like, hey, this isn't brick and mortar. This isn't a big institution of like, the Verizon. Like we want to give you control. Like you can come and go as you please. The switch, we make it easy. There's no contracts. There's nothing holding you to us. We will pass our savings on to you because we don't have this crazy retail overhead that the large carriers have. Our app is actually easy to use, our billing simple, like all the kind of things that tie you down with a bigger carrier. We just kind of tried to strip that, simplify that. So I think in a way, for some people, switching to Wing might feel like that kind of cord cutting experience in a sense. Right.
No, I can definitely understand that, because, it's like, it seems like you take away a lot of the kind of like, I'm not going to say unnecessary administrative stuff that comes with it, but like stuff that like you can kind of, you can't do without, you know what I mean? Because I think a lot of times people, they have their cell phone service, and it's kind of like you're paying for more so a brand as opposed to the actual service. Like if you actually thought about the service, like I don't need this, I don't need this. Like something like a Wing would be perfect, probably for most of the country, stuff like that. So I definitely understand that for sure. Oh, sure, for sure. I want to transition really quickly. I'm sorry, were you about to say something?
I was just going to say too, just I think to your point, transparency, bringing transparency into this industry is huge, because I think what you were kind of alluding to is a lot of people at this point, when it comes to a cell phone bill, you don't even know what you're paying for. Like you kind of ask someone like, how much data are you actually using? Or how many gigs does your unlimited plan give you? Or what plan are you even on? And it's like, I don't know. My bill kind of like looks like hieroglyphics when it arrives. I just pay the same thing every month, and that's that. And it's like, for us, it's like, no, here's an opportunity to like, this is what you're paying for. If you have an unlimited plan, we're still going to show you the data you're using in our app, and we'll help guide you like, hey, you don't need to pay this much. You can jump down to a lower plan if you need. So I think that type of transparency has been, very clouded, I think, with some of the bigger carriers now. For sure. Thank you for sharing that. Just want to transition just a little bit. I want to know about Wing's culture, right? Like kind of talk about, how, like the culture around the office and stuff like that, probably virtually these days, but like, are there like core values? Are there things that are just super important? Kind of talk about the culture there at Wing, if you don't mind. Yeah, totally. I think it kind of goes back to what I said before. It's people who are kind of willing to, take a bit of a risk and have their friends and family, call them a little bit crazy. Because I think when you say like, I'm working for a cell phone startup or a cell phone company. Like that it's hard for that to translate in people's minds. But I think, for us, our kind of core group and the people we've hired are, people who bring great value and experience, but not necessarily telecom experience. So to this day, it's been pretty important to us to even, as we grow and get more experience, people kind of through our doors and part of our, family is that we don't really want anyone who's been in this industry before, because we don't want to lose that touch. Like, we don't want to lose what got us here, which was like, we don't exactly know how this works, but let's map out what the perfect cell phone carrier would look like, because we just feel like that puts us in the shoes of kind of the everyday person. And I think the second we start thinking too much like a cell phone conglomerate or something like that, it's, we kind of lose the core values. So I think that's why, with hiring and bringing people in, it's people who kind of understand that and are just willing to learn and kind of learn about this industry just from scratch, because then that's how awesome ideas blossom, more than anything.
For sure. And I think you bring up an interesting point. I think Startup Nation, a lot of times when we start a company or a startup or whatever the case may be, I think a lot of times, believe it or not, knowing a whole lot can be a hindrance, right? Because like if you had a lot of people, like you were just saying, Greg, that that came from the industry and stuff like that, then it doesn't spark that creativity, doesn't spark that innovation, if you will, and you definitely want to keep that edge, right? So I think you bring up a very valuable point that Startup Nation can definitely put in their entrepreneurial toolkit, man. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, totally. And I think, it's, to be honest, like we're kind of now in this pivotal stage of, I don't know how much longer we can call ourselves a startup.
Of course.
Good growth. So it's kind of interesting to navigate, through that phase too of like, oh, okay, like we are getting bigger, things are getting more professional. But like you said, how do you keep that edge and how do we keep those values and not, kind of get stuck in our ways either?
For sure. I appreciate you sharing that. And, another thing about, culture and stuff like that, Greg, is that a lot of times people want to do, especially customers in this stage, or, in particularly millennials and Gen Z, they want to do business with companies that have like a social impact, some type of social, initiative, if you will. Does Wing do anything like that that you guys are proud of, or that you guys are thinking about, kind of engaging in? Kind of talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, totally. That's honestly a very prevalent topic at the moment, and something that we're really looking into for a kind of 2021 launch. So it's not set in stone yet. Gotcha. So I don't have exact specifics, but we do feel like there's a big area for us to, really provide, whether it be cell phone or service to people who don't have this. So I think for us, it's kind of the fact that we're nationwide, the fact that we have users in, every single state, and we start, through that really understanding, certain people's circumstances, or like I said before, how hard it is to even, get Wi-Fi for certain people in areas of the country. So we do feel like there's an area there for us to explore to, keep in mind how much of a luxury, even a new phone or cell phone service is. So we're definitely looking into initiatives that we can kind of partner with, or even kind of start ourselves to really start being able to provide, phones and service for people who otherwise might not have been able to, receive that. So that's something that we're really excited for this year. For sure.
Thank you for sharing that. Once again, Startup Nation, we're talking to Greg Dybec, Chief Strategy Officer at Wingtail Inc. And if you want to, once again, make that switch, Startup Nation, go to Wing Alpha, www.wingalpha.com. We have a link there in the show notes for easy access if you're listening to the replay on the podcast. So look, man, let's kind of change it up a little bit, because outside of, disrupting the telecom industry, disrupting the cell phone game here, you also have a lot of ventures that you do as well, man, including the Other People's Lives podcast. In Startup Nation, we have a link there in the show notes to check that podcast out as well, man. Kind of talk about the show, man. I love the premise and what you got going there.
Yeah, thank you. So it's a big shift from cell phones, that's for sure. But
absolutely.
I think, it's, for me, kind of my own journey started from, a really kind of background at first. And I majored in English, so I'm an author too.
Gotcha.
One of my dreams was always to write a book, which I was able to do a few years ago. So it's really, I've never taken a business course or anything like that. It's something that just kind of came into my life that I kind of fell in love with too. So I'm just really always kind of blending, I think, those two worlds, which the podcast too just kind of falls into that category of being able to kind of grow that into its own business, but having that be, a super kind of creative outlet as well. So that particular podcast, Other People's Lives, started from just kind of a thought of like, I'm in New York City, so
right,
pre-pandemic, and can't wait for these times to come back. But you're passing and seeing so many people, throughout the day, from riding the subway to walking down the street, and just always been so intrigued by just the fact that you truly don't know what these people are doing behind closed doors or the lives that they live. It's kind of like that old like, how many, like, did I sit next to a serial killer today? It's
right.
like you just wouldn't know in plain sight. So the premise of the podcast is really to speak to, ordinary people with sort of a extraordinary story. So
Absolutely.
People with kind of alternative lifestyles or certain fetishes even, or strange jobs, and just really hearing from them and offering up a platform to hear their story in just a truly judgment-free zone. It's kind of like enter the safe space and let's talk about taboo topics that you can't necessarily go around and share with strangers or even sometimes your friends and family.
For sure. And the thing is, that's why I love podcasting, right? Because it just goes to show that, like, look, everybody doesn't make it to NBC News or CNN or whatever to kind of tell their story, but people like all over the place have fascinating stories, and you really get to explore that. I want to go back to something you said earlier about living in New York City and stuff like that. I had the privilege of we went on vacation about 2 years ago, 2019, about a year and a half ago that summer. And we came to New York for the first time, and we absolutely loved it, man. I think one of the things I appreciated was just the energy, right? It's kind of going back to what you were saying earlier, you just walking next to somebody, you just never know what they have gone through or a story like that. Kind of talk about New York, NYC's energy for like just entrepreneurship or just life in general, man. Kind of talk about that, because I know I found that interesting when I went there the first time.
Yeah, man, I'm so glad you brought that up too, because now we're going through a phase in the pandemic where everyone wants to say, New York is dead and it might not come back, and I'm not a believer of that.
Yeah, I don't believe that either at all.
Yeah, I'm still getting the same energy. Obviously it's a little different, but
of course.
It's a hiatus. It feels like a rubber band about to snap, and I know the people here can't wait to for things to just get back to normal, to get that energy flowing again. And it's it has 1,000,000% helped drive me in everything I do. I think like you said, it's hard to describe, but it's just it's a pulse, and it's just it keeps you going. And as corny as it might sound, like when you're walking through the city some days, you at least convince yourself that anything's possible, and you
right.
need that every once in a while to do something crazy and do something ambitious, and that you're surrounded by like-minded people who are also risking it, and sometimes risking it all to find to turn their passion into their life and into their business. And I think you can't find that too many places. So it's something that for sure fuels me.
Absolutely. Because look, I know, like, we stayed in Manhattan when we were there, and just to like just walk out, like before my family woke up for the day to go on whatever our NYC venture was for that day, just walking around and just seeing like like street vendors and like people in suits just walking and talking and just like having conversations and stuff. It was like, man, like this place is just different now, and I get it. I come from the South, right? I come from Tennessee, so it's just something a little different that I just really appreciate. A lot of people said, from down here, like I would never move there. It's too fast. Like I don't know, man. I don't know. I loved it. I absolutely fell in love with it because I could appreciate it for what it was. You know what I mean? And so I think that like I said, that energy was something, it fueled me. I feel like I have to go, like make it a pilgrimage, like every 2 years, just to go to New York to get recharged and then come back home and just like kill it. You know what I mean? So
no, and I think you would do well up here, but you know, it's to that point too. It's like it does require you, and I think reminds you at times to strike a balance. And I think that's
big
important.
facts. Yeah,
I mean, it's because it's, you know, when everything's moving constantly, it's, you know, there's dangers in that too.
Oh,
and
for
like,
sure.
I'm
for
not
sure.
blind to it.
Right.
But I think, you know, when you really find that balance and you can kind of harness that energy in the most positive way, but still know when to, you know, kind of take the break and recharge, then, you know, I think it truly makes you feel like anything's possible, and people have, you know, accomplished such great things here, you know, for that reason.
For sure. And so, you know, you talked about, you know, being, you know, an author, and you know, published, you know, essays and stuff like that, being an English major. My wife was also an English major. I'm curious to know something, man. Like, you know, if you could go back in time and just speak with any author from any era and stuff like that, just to pick their brain, who would that be and why, man?
Oh man,
I know it's a big question.
Yeah, that's a huge question.
Now, I know my wife, for some reason, she's not a fan of American Lit. I don't know why that is, but, you know, she says she's not a fan, but, you know, but that's her.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I'll be honest. You said Dead or Alive?
Dead or Alive, yeah.
Oh, okay. So for me, one of my favorite authors and someone who inspired me when I, you know, wrote my book was David Sedaris. And,
okay.
You know, he's a great humorist, great essayist. And, you know, for me, that stands out because he was such a guiding light for, I think, just like making me kind of explore my own curiosity and understand how to turn my, you know, observations into whatever it may be, like through the podcast, through the book. Like it's, you know, it's just that it's something that, you know, I just love, you know, to do, just to kind of see everything through that lens of kind of like, let me observe this, let me find the humor in this. And it's been important, you know, to me. It's kind of how I approach everything, and even business too. Like, I think, I truly try not to take anything too seriously,
I hear that.
In any instance. So, yeah, that's my answer.
Gotcha. I hear that. I hear
help
that.
me get that mindset.
For sure. No, I definitely understand that. Like, not taking everything too serious. I had to learn that lesson the hard way a few times growing up. So I definitely understand that one for sure. I want to ask you this, man, because I know, you know, you're working you're there at Wing and trying to grow that company and stuff like that, and you got everything else going on from the podcast, and, you know, you're writing there, you know, you get your books and stuff like that. Kind of talk about how you juggle it all, man, and how you prioritize things, man, because I know a lot of times there are a lot of people out there who's trying to, like, you know, whether they be trying to be influencers or trying to be business owners, trying to talk about how you juggle things and how you prioritize things and how you schedule things, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't still learning.
Fair enough.
And I think
I think we all are.
It's a big mistake. Yeah, no, I think that's part of it. And you know, if anyone tells you they have an exact answer, I don't know if that's always true. But I've definitely learned the hard way as well too. I think for me, it's kind of like just starting to like protect my energy more, I guess you could say, of just really, like, I'm great at juggling things if those things are, you know, if I'm truly getting what I want out of those things.
Right.
And, you know, what I get out of my podcast is somewhat different than what I get out of Wing, which is different from what I get out of writing. But it's, you know, once it kind of starts to become more of a chore or less interest or something, like if it's just not giving you exactly, you know, what you wanted from it, then I think like reassessing is key. I think like stepping back and understanding, you know, like why did I start this in the first place? How can I like adjust course to, you know, make this fit kind of better in my life and, you know, bring me kind of like the pleasure, satisfaction, whatever I need to get out of this. So I think just like constantly, you know, reassessing the approach to all these different things has been key for me. Just because things change with time. Like I just think it's important to kind of always reassess and, like recalibrate yourself and kind of understand the multiple paths and journeys that you're on, and remind yourself why you're doing it.
For sure. That reassess piece is so important. Like, because, you can, you can be so into something and then you kind of lose yourself in it. And then sometimes you got to step back and just reassess. So I appreciate you sharing that for sure, Greg, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And I will say, and this isn't good from the cell phone salesman, but learning to put the phone down has been key too. And I think like everyone can, a lot of us, have, small addictions or behaviors that we probably would want to get rid of when it comes to technology, specifically phones. So even though that's one of the things I'm selling, definitely not afraid to say that disconnecting is key as well, because it eats up much more time than we realize. And we usually realize when it's too late. For sure.
And it goes back to what you were saying, balance, you know what I mean? Just that balance, finding that balance. So no, I definitely understand that. It's something we, preach profusely here on the Startup Life. So I appreciate you sharing that for sure. Once again, Startup Nation, we're actually wrapping up with Greg Dybec, Chief Strategy Officer at Wing. Once again, if you were to make that switch, strap on some wings and head over to wingalpha.com, wingalpha.com. We have a link there in the show notes for easy access if you listen to the replay on the podcast, man. And also make sure you check out other people's lives podcasts. We have that link there in the show notes as well for you to check out that show and hear some amazing stories from some amazing people. Look, man, before I let you go, man, like I said, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing everything that you shared today. But if you would, man, just kind of share some lasting words of encouragement, man. Look, there's a lot going on. I mean, a lot going on here on the blue dot we call planet Earth. You know what I mean? And so if you would, man, just kind of share some words of encouragement to take us out for today, if you don't mind, good sir.
Totally. I'll keep it simple. I'll keep it in line with, everything we've been talking about. Sometimes you just got to wing it. I think,
nice.
That's kind of a motto I've lived by, and it's sort of, experience isn't always necessary. And, it's something I've had to deal with in the past too. And, a lot of people where something does sound crazy or even if you trust yourself, you just kind of think like, well, I have no business doing this. I have no business entering this industry, starting a business, trying this new creative venture or whatever it may be. But, time and time again, great people keep proving that experience isn't necessary. And once you kind of get over that first obstacle, of doubt, I think that's where great things happen.
For sure.
Just wing it sometimes.
For sure. I hear that, Startup Nation. Just wing it. And that's going to wrap up this session of the Startup Life. Once again, we want to thank Chief Strategy Officer Greg Dybec at Wing. Thank you, good sir.
Thank you so much.
No worries. And as always, Startup Nation, if you have an idea, be about that life, the Startup Life. If you want to let us know what you think about our show, have an idea for a show topic, or would like to advertise on our show, send us a message on the Startup Life Podcast Facebook page. And while you are there, like and follow our page as well. It's a great way for us to engage with you, Startup Nation, and really grow our community. The link is there in the show notes. Subscribe to the show as it can be heard on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or even on your Facebook timeline or any other platform you like to get your podcast. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you find our content valuable, please give us a 5-star rating, as it will help us climb the charts and help more people find our show. You can also listen to the show on the Startup Life Podcast new website. There you will find the all-new startup blog where I write on many topics that are interesting and helpful to you on your path to entrepreneurship. And hey, if you have an idea, be about that life, the Startup Life.